Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight on a very special episode. I did want to just say before we get started to anyone who may not be subscribed to go ahead and do that. There's a lot of cool stuff on here. One of our guys, Dewey, does amazing videos, shorts, and reels that are really awesome. This show has become a full time thing, which I love. And I'm very excited about tonight. I'm excited about tomorrow. We're talking with another great author, Nick Snape. So I'm pumped about that. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to just jump right in and bring these special guests on. Bill Adams.
Yeah, I'm special guest.
Yeah. So this is my special co-host for the evening. I'm just going to say fangirling super hard.
We're going to fangirl hard tonight, so we apologize in advance.
So I just would have felt empty without having you on here for this one.
I appreciate it, man. I'm so happy for tonight.
Yeah, this is fucking...
Or morning.
Roy told me to stop cursing, and I was like, when you read his books tonight, I don't think you'll mind me dropping the occasional F-bomb. But yeah, let's get right to it. We're bringing him on, Mr. Jay Kristoff.
Hello.
Hey boys, how you doing? Morning or evening, as the case may be.
Daylight savings time, huh?
Thank you for joining us tonight, this morning. It is definitely an honor to have you here. I know, like I said, we were fangirling, and I think each of us were messaging you in tandem because we had our own chat going, and it was, what page are you on? I can't spoil anything. Like back and forth religiously.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, we were lucky. We'll get there, but we were lucky. We got the awesome arc of Dawn, and we'll get there. But
so you have experience.
You're so mean. You're so mean, and I love it.
Yeah, it was a rough one. It was a lot of fun to write, but yeah, they go through some hard times. So I apologize for the trauma that I inflicted upon you, but I'm glad you had fun.
I think I'm still recovering a little bit.
Yeah, it's a rough ride.
From trying to get the arc as much as the book itself. I was begging and pleading. I spoke to someone at St. Martin's. I was like, if you leave it outside the office, I'll drive to Manhattan. And she was like, why don't you just give me your address? And I was like,
yeah. I'm glad they didn't make you drive all the way to New York City. That would have been rough. Not that good a book.
I'm going to start it up very randomly because a while ago when I messaged and I was like, I would love to have you on. We'll talk about whatever. One of the things that I specifically mentioned, because I know you're a big metal dude, big music fan.
Yeah.
The concert in the Soviet Union, when that wall fell, when it was the first concert there, who would you want to see the most? Pantera, Metallica, AC/DC?
Man, that's a really hard question. I mean, we're talking like back in the day, like in the 90s, or we talking
I would
now?
say that concert, who would you go for? Because no one wants to see Saint Anger Metallica, but you want to see Master of Puppets Metallica.
Yeah, man, probably Pantera, just because of what happened to Dime, and you know, Vinny's gone now as well. So I was lucky enough I saw Pantera twice. I grew up in a city called Perth, which is on the west coast of Australia. It's the second most isolated capital city in the world, aside from Honolulu. So it's like miles from everywhere. And so no bands ever came to Perth because it just cost too much in freight. So we would, big bands would tour Australia, but we would never get big bands come to Perth. But Pantera played twice. They came on Far Beyond Driven, and they came on Tranquil. So I got to see them twice, like in the glory days. And they just kill it, man. Like they're one of the bands that really taught me about myself when I was growing up. I love Metallica, like particularly Puppeteer and Metallica. They were my gateway drug into metal, really, them and Ozzy. But Pantera was, listening to Pantera kind of taught me a lot about who I was. So yeah, I love those guys. I sometimes just load up that clip of Domination at Monsters of Rock, where it's all shot in black and white. That massive breakdown at the end where there's like 250,000 people just going off. Like, yeah, it's good times. Great band.
Yeah, that is a ridiculous video. And
yeah. And you think like they were only on Cowboys at that stage. Like no one really knew who they were. They were just about, I don't think they'd even dropped Vulgar yet. So yeah, to play that gig like 250,000 people when you're basically coming out on Kinda, your first album. It wasn't their first album, but it was their first album in the form that they assumed. That would have been just crazy. Yeah, it's great. I love that clip.
Yeah, I've said something to you, I think, in the past, and I was a big metal fan, I still am, but I had the custom Dimebag guitar with, the lightning bolts.
Oh, the lightning. Yeah, right. No, the Washburn. Yeah.
I had that, and then probably like a year into having it, I became a giant jam band fan, Grateful Dead, and I started playing. I started playing cover bands with the Dimebag guitar.
Right.
Wow, did I feel out of place?
Yeah, a little opposite there, buddy.
It was like I have old pictures, and I look at them. I'm just like, what was I doing? Everyone's like kind of just noodling and having fun, and I'm like doing 3 chords on what should be the shredder's guitar.
Right. I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? Everyone starts on 3 chords. So.
Yeah, exactly. But as far as the music tastes go, are you a listen to music while you write guy? Because I know Stephen King puts on like the Ramones and Anthrax to keep people away, actually, while he's writing. Is that something you do?
That's a good idea. I listen to music, but I can't listen to anything with lyrics because the lyrics get in the way of my own words, particularly if it's a band that I love. For me to really love a band, the lyrics have to be great. Like a lot of the modern musicians that I listen to are genuinely poets, and so their words just kind of pull me in. So yeah, and that pulls me out of the work. So typically speaking, I'm listening to music, but it's mostly mood music. It's like Atmo. There's a great channel on YouTube called Cryo Chamber. That's basically like gothy industrial ambience. It's like moody noise is the best way to describe it. And that kind of puts me in the mindset of the books that I write without dragging me out of the book. Sometimes I'll listen to movie scores as well. Like if I'm writing a big action piece, I'll have something a little bit more bombastic on in the background. But again, it's all lyricless. Hans Zimmer is another great composer that I listen to. When I was writing the Nevernight books, I was listening to a guy named Ludovico Einaudi, I think it's pronounced. He's like an Italian pianist. He writes these beautiful orchestral pieces that are kind of piano centric. And I basically wrote the entire Nevernight trilogy to that as my soundtrack. So yeah, music is a constant, but not when I'm writing. When I'm brainstorming, kicking around ideas, I'll listen to music with lyrics. And sometimes those lyrics will inspire a particular train of thought. But yeah, when I'm writing it's I need something going on in the background, but nothing too distracting.
Interesting. And yeah, as far as the journey of your writing goes, I'm going to dive back to the very beginning.
Sure.
Bill turned me onto this. I am just sharing an image. Storm Dancer.
Yeah.
I figure while we have you, we're going for it. This is the all-in type thing. So with this series, I wanted to ask what made you want to go into the background of having the Japanese theme to it and having a setting similar to that?
It was honestly rule of cool. I just thought it was cool. I didn't put an enormous amount of thought into the whys of it. I had a dream, man. This is like way back now. This is be like 2010, so 15 years ago. So you're testing my memory. But I had a dream. I was writing a book at the time. It was the first book that I'd ever written, and weirdly enough, it was a vampire book. And I had basically finished it, and I was sending it out. I was starting my agent search journey. I don't know if you're aware of it, but like you write a manuscript is back in the day, at least before indie was a thing. But back in the day, you're only path to publication. You have to find a literary agent, and then they find you a publisher. So I had written this book, and I was looking for a literary agent, and the people that I was writing to were complimentary about the writing, but it was a vampire novel in the middle of Twilight hysteria, so vampires were pretty fucking played out at that point. And I had a dream about a little boy. He was in a field of grass, like long grass, and there was a griffin in the middle of this field, and he was yelling at it, trying to make it fly, and it wouldn't fly. And dream interpreters will tell you that the little boy was me, and the griffin was the book that I was trying to make fly, and it just wasn't going to. And weirdly enough, that kicked an idea loose in my head about writing a book, about a griffin that couldn't fly. So that was the impetus of the story, the genesis of it, I guess. But as far, I was always into steampunk. I thought it was really cool aesthetically, a little bit different. And as far as the Japanese theme, yeah, it was rule of cool. Sometimes you just do things. I think Brandon Sanderson said that sometimes you can have a complicated reason for doing something, and sometimes you just do it because you think it's cool. So in that particular case, I just thought it was cool. I like the idea of chainsaw katanas.
Yeah. Yes.
And there's a couple of periods in history that I'm really interested in. Ancient Rome is one of them, and Tokugawa era shogunate in Japan is another one. So yeah, I kind of combined a few of the loves of mine, passions of mine into the book.
So follow up on that. You kind of have a reputation on the internet of being edgy or
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I never know.
I think it's a good thing, but obviously, because I'm a big fan of your work. But with the world as it is and people on the internet as they are,
yeah,
how was it received? How do you think the reception was to the Lotus War, a Japanese style, not written by someone from Japan?
I mean, back then it was a little more forgivable than it is now.
True.
This is like the book came out in 2012. So at the time it wasn't a big deal. I think you would really struggle doing it now. But times are pretty different now. Again, I don't know. There's a bit of a cultural shift, a bit of a cultural backlash happening against that backlash as well. I think, I don't know, you got to tread carefully and you got to be respectful about any subject matter that you're tackling. But there is, I think, a really pernicious myth that's perpetrated in certain segments of the writing community that says you must be the thing to write the thing, whatever the thing may be. Straight people can't write gay people, women can't write men. And to me, that is a fundamental denial of the two most essential parts of any fiction writing, being empathy and imagination. Like, I will never know what it's like to be in a frontline combat position, looking at a man next to me with a weapon in his hand, knowing that his life is in my hands and my life is in his. And the guy coming at me across no man's land is going to kill me unless I kill him. I will never know what that feeling is like. I've written that feeling. I won't know what it's like to kill somebody. I won't know what it's like to be an insane artificial intelligence. I don't know what it's like to be a vampire. I don't know what it's like to be a bisexual teenage assassin girl. But I've written all those things. And that's based on the two principles of empathy and imagination. So I don't know. I get the logic behind people want to tell their own stories, but when you're in the realm of genre and fiction, I think that idea that you must be the thing to write the thing is a really dangerous one, because drawn to its logical conclusion, the only thing you're allowed to write is an autobiography. The only thing I know is me at the end of the day. All I can write is Jay's story if I'm being 100% truthful. So yeah, I get the sensitivities of it. I still get shit about that series occasionally, but I don't listen to much shit on the internet. I'm kind of at that point where I'm old and crusty enough not to give a fuck about me online. There are people that love me. There are people that hate me. So that's kind of the cost of doing business, particularly in an era where conflict and shit posting and clout chasing is almost a sport now. People do it for recreation. It's like the internet is kind of like bread and circuses were in the ancient Roman Empire. I think social media is just a weapon of mass distraction. It just really is petty conflicts over bullshit that ultimately doesn't matter, while terrible things are happening at scale all over the world. But you can't do anything about those massive conflicts. What you can do is find someone you don't like online and spit shit at them in the hopes that the shit sticks. So yeah, those books, they were the first books that I wrote I'm still really proud of them. They put me on the path that I'm on right now, and the place where I'm at right now, I think is a really cool one. I don't think I could get away with writing them nowadays, but you know, they're a product of their time, and they've led me to this point in my career. So yeah, I still really love them. I got a soft spot for them.
I mean, these were how I found you. You know, you've been an auto
Oh,
buy.
really?
Book came out. Yeah, I was in Barnes and Noble, and I saw the cover like on the thing, and I'm just like sold.
Yeah,
Like,
Jason
sold.
Chan, man. I'm so lucky to work with that guy. He's such a talented guy. He's done pretty much all of my US covers through St. Martin's Press. So he did the Stormnets covers, he did the Nevernight covers, he did the Empire covers. I will work with that dude until the
He's
wheels fall off.
phenomenal.
Yeah, he's so talented, man. He doesn't do as much work anymore. I'm still really lucky that he does my stuff. But yeah, you look at the work he did for like League of Legends. Like, he's such an incredible artist. So yeah, I'm ride or die for that guy. He's incredible.
Yeah. Pete, I don't want to steal your thunder here, but I also wanted to ask a question relating to the book and steampunk here.
Sure.
Normally, steampunk is steam and water, but your concept here is a flower, is
Right.
the fuel source. How did that come about?
I mean, it's not a very subtle allegory in that book. You know, the Lotus is kind of it's a stand-in for fossil fuels. It's a fuel source that destroys the environment around it at the cost of power. You know, you're trading short-term boost for long-term loss. Where that idea came from, I don't know. That's one of those age-old questions. I've never really heard a good answer to that question. Where do ideas come from? I'm kind of a visually minded person. And a lot of my books start with visuals in my head, and I think it probably went back to that dream that I had, you know, the little boy in that field of long grass. So long grass to flowers isn't a huge jump. So I think that's probably where it came from. But yeah, ideas come from anywhere, man. I don't think anyone really knows where or why, but I suspect that was the genesis of it, that field of long grass. So dreams, which is a trite answer, but a lot of my coolest ideas have come in dreams.
Well, so is mine. I mean, that's where a lot of stuff comes from. But
yeah, I mean, your mind is kind of defragging, and it's really allowed to let itself loose in its own playground. I think I did an appearance last night in Melbourne with Callie Hart, who's the lady who wrote Quicksilver, and we were talking about this on stage. Someone asked in the audience, you know, what advice would you give to a young writer? And weirdly enough, we both had the same piece of advice, which is finish the fucking book. Because, you know, even if it sucks, because you can fix a bad book, you can't fix a book that doesn't exist. But one of the other things that I've been saying to people recently is like, this fucking thing, get rid of it. Treat it like a hostile alien organism that wants to eat your fucking time. Like, this is a weapon we've invented to eliminate boredom. And boredom is essential in the creative process. You need to be alone with your thoughts. You need to sit in quiet and let your brain solve those problems for you. I had this epiphany a little while ago. I realized I was having lots of ideas in the shower, and I was wondering, like, why is that? Has it got something to do with the water? Has it got something to do with the frequency? And then I realized, no, I just can't take my fucking phone in the shower. So I'm left alone with my thoughts, and I think of cool stuff while I'm in there. So after I had that, like, this thing lives at the other end of the house. I don't take it with me when I walk the dog. When I go to sleep at night, it's in another room. Like, I view that thing as an enemy now. It's an enemy to creativity. It's an enemy to my word count. It's an enemy to my real relationships. So yeah, ideas come from quiet. I think that's a really good place to start, to let yourself be alone with your imagination and just stare up at the clouds, man, and think. So yeah, that's an essential part of the process.
That's awesome. That's awesome advice, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I just finished a draft of a story, and I had to like force myself.
Amazing. Congrats, man. That's awesome. Good for you.
It's it's the Running Man Arnold Schwarzenegger movie meets Shadow.
Oh, yeah. Meets what? Sorry.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. That's a great pitch. I love it.
Yeah, I'm not even using books. I'm using the visual because that's exactly what it is. But
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm exactly the same way. Yeah, comping to film and video games is a pretty good tack because not a lot of people read anymore. So,
Well, but I did what you just said. Is I forced myself not to go on social media at all
Yeah.
and like stay off of Discord.
Yeah, I used to, but it'll be worth it in the end.
Right. So
Yeah.
no, I like that advice very much.
Yeah,
So.
you've got to, everything that I do is treated as an opportunity cost. Like I could be writing. So if I'm doing this thing, it would want to be worth my time because otherwise I could be getting 1,000 words down. When you put everything and process it through that matrix, you realize what in your life is actually important and essential. And that phone is like the bottom of the list, man. I'd rather be doing anything than it. Yeah, that was a really fundamental mind shift that I went through in the last 18 months. Like I know it sounds weird, but I genuinely view that thing with hostility now. Like I consider it an enemy. I have to have it because it's an essential part of modern living, but I fucking hate it. Every time I walk past it, it's an enemy to creativity. It's an enemy to thought. It's a distraction machine, man. It's deadly.
Can I put that
It's
in?
interesting to.
I realize the irony of saying this to a bunch of people who are probably watching this on their phone.
Yeah, we make two. It's interesting to hear it's interesting to hear all the ways that the creativity comes out, though, and how you could interpret dreams and make things your own. I'm going to pivot now to Nevernight and talk about that series for a little bit. But in terms of taking inspiration and ideas and making something unique of it, especially in the recent era of books, TV, that type of stuff, we kind of see assassin schools, a little bit, especially with like a young girl who gets trained. But this was such a unique series full of all things that were done very differently. So how did you come up with the aspects of that story to make it something fresh and an idea that is seen a little more frequently than most?
I mean, again, that book started as a visual in my head. There's a character, I don't know whether you're familiar with her. She's called Emily the Strange. She's this little goth kid. She has sharp bangs and long black hair. Or like when I grew up in the scene, all the goth girls would have her on her backpack. She was like a cartoon character, and she was always surrounded by cats. And so when I was thinking of Mia, I basically aged up Emily the Strange and gave her a broadsword, and that was the genesis of the character. So again, that started out as a visual in my head. But I knew I wanted her to have shadow powers and a shadow cat. I like animal companions. That's kind of a recurring trope in my books. But I kind of game things out when I'm first kicking ideas around, and I realize you give an assassin shadow powers, they're just god tier before they even get out of the box. Like if you can teleport from place to place and turn invisible and your job is to kill people, you're going to be doing that pretty easy. So I wanted to make things particularly hard for her. So I put her in a world where there was no darkness. So I immediately kind of clipped her wings. I made her powerful for like 2 weeks in every 2.5 year period. So that, I think, giving her that initial struggle straight out of the box, something kind of interesting that she could do immediately. She didn't have to learn to do it, but she was limited by the environment around her, I think makes her a little more interesting. I mean, she's an assassin who actually fucking kills people, which is kind of different because most of these girls who go to assassin schools don't actually clip people. Whereas Mia's she's pretty amoral. Like she's not a heroine in any traditional sense of the word. She's actually a bad person. She's interesting. I think people find her compelling. But if you drill down to the roots of her morality, she's pretty unpleasant. Like she's vain and she's kind of selfish. She's motivated in the end by love of family. That's kind of her root moral compass. And the things that she does, she's ultimately doing in the name of family. But really, Nevernight is a story about the destructive nature of revenge and rage. And Mia is kind of caught up in that tempest for most of the book and comes very close to becoming the very thing she's trying to destroy by the end of it. I think that's what makes her a little different. She's an anti-hero. She's not a traditional heroine in the sense of the word. And she doesn't really subscribe to traditional morality. She's not, I'm making her sound like a bit of a pick-me girl, but she swears, she smokes, she sleeps around. She's not particularly romantically attached to anyone, at least until book 3. She's kind of just in her own head and in her own thing. And if you're happy to come along with her, she's happy to have you. But she's kind of like a cat. She can take or leave you. She'll find her own way. She'll work it out. It's fine. You go and do you, bro. I got my own shit to do. So I think, her moral compass is a little askew, and her worldview is kind of odd, atypical, I guess. So that's her point of difference that I think makes her a little bit more compelling than some of those other assassin girlies. I think maybe the fact that a guy wrote her might have something to do with that as well. And that goes back to what I was saying before, if I followed that conventional wisdom, men can't write women and straight people can't write gay people or bi people, then Mia wouldn't exist. And yet that book has found a home in the hearts of hundreds of thousands. I think it's sold like 1 million copies or something now all over the world. And if I had have listened to those people who are telling me that you can't do that, you don't have the range to do that, then that book wouldn't exist. And to this day, people come up to me and tell me how that book and that character affected them. Like I've got some of the most amazing letters over the years, man. Like Mia has got people through some seriously dark times. I won't go into detail, but the worst that life can throw at you, and people have found solace in that character and in those books. So that's a pretty good lesson in terms of not listening to the people who tell you that you can't and you won't, and just tell the story that you want to tell.
And then on top of it, you threw it into ancient Rome, so it's like
ancient Rome is one of my. I can speak about like 3 historical periods with any degree of certitude. Ancient Rome is one of them. It's just one. I realize there's that whole meme going around a couple of years ago.
Where all the guys
just think about ancient Rome once a day. That is actually fucking me. Like I can sit and talk for hours about it. So yeah, I found that meme pretty hilarious. My wife showed it to me at first. It's like, babe, they got you pegged. But yeah. So again, I kind of leaned on that historical period that I feel a particular affinity for, and kind of use that as the foundation for Atrean culture, at least. Just it's more fun that way. I remember I was on a trip for a wedding anniversary, and I was walking around the Colosseum with my wife, and that's kind of where the genesis of God's Grave all happened. I was in the middle of writing Nevernight, kind of tying up the end of the book and wondering what book 2 was going to be, and I was just standing in the Colosseum and thought, I could do this. So big fan.
Same. I studied ancient Rome in college, so I was like,
right.
Better book for me, Assassins and ancient Rome, like perfect.
Who's your favorite emperor?
Well, I think one of the most interesting is the 5 of Hadrian, probably.
Hadrian's great. Yeah.
You gotta like Neto, however you want to pronounce it, because he's Rocco. And then
I got married in a place. My wife and I got married in Rome, weirdly enough, and the only place you can get married outside of church, because they're pretty heavy Catholicism there.
Just a wee bit.
The hill it backs up to the forum called Campidoglio Square, which is where they do all the civil ceremonies. And there's a massive statue of Hadrian on a horse right outside the front. Yeah, I got a soft spot for Hadrian. He's great.
That's cool. When I was studying, sorry to go in tangent, but when we were studying the ancient Rome geography, and then I went to Rome, there's the hotel we stayed at, there's a restaurant right underneath that says because it goes into the ground. That's where Julius Caesar was stabbed, because it was right in the floor.
Yeah, there's about 3 or 4 of those around.
I was like, I don't know about that, but
no one really knows. But there's about 3 or 4 of those places that claim to be the spot where he got necked.
It's like, oh, there's the blood spot on the wall right there. Like,
right there. This was the knife that killed him. Sure. Yeah.
I believe you.
Someone just out there with a bucket in the morning. It's still there. It's perfectly preserved.
Yeah, Caligula was a fun guy.
He was a fun guy, and like no one not from around him, but he's fun to read about. Yeah, the crazy ones are the most interesting. The terrible choice of rulers, but really cool
Right.
story. Yeah.
I mean, this world has a penchant for that.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with the hereditary monarchy. The chances of your son being as good at your job as you are pretty slim. But
It's funny to talk about that period in ancient Rome and everything, because I think this could actually tie into empire as well, but obviously the churches and religious factor of this series is massive. Is that kind of just because they're, a church system like that is so good to be a shady organization and have inner workings where you're not supposed to know it, and things that are kept secret, and kind of huge aspects of life are run in the shadows, which ironically enough. But is that something that you took from real life to put into this series?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it certainly helps in terms of the structures that you're talking about. But my main goal with the religious aspect of empire, like I got raised Catholic. I went to an all boys Catholic school, and I always kind of railed against it. I kind of saw the holes in the tapestry from a pretty young age. So a lot of Gabe's struggles with faith and the structures of organized religion kind of go back to struggles that I've had in my own personal life. Like Gabe doesn't have the ability to just say, well, God doesn't exist. It's all bullshit, because, you hold up a holy symbol and a vampire will be repelled by it. So there's evidence of God in the world itself. Like he's got it tattooed on his skin. So he doesn't have the luxury of just dismissing it all. He has to wrangle with the idea of, it's that age old question, how does a God who claims to love us allow all this horror to exist in the world? How can you reconcile the idea of a benevolent creator with the everyday catastrophes of life? And that's a really hard question to answer. I've tried to answer it my entire life. So that was really the point of having a structure in world that is at least comparable to Christian structures and Catholic structures, because that's kind of what I grew up with. So it's easy for me to interrogate it because I'm in text, because I've been interrogating it myself all my life. But I was kind of careful, because I don't want to be an author on a soapbox. I don't want to be telling you what to think. I think there's a lot of authors nowadays who go into their books not with a story that they want to tell, but with a message they want to impart. Like they want to teach you something you don't know.
Yeah.
And I fucking hate that. Like I can feel it. I can feel it straight away.
Yeah, you could tell when they're doing that too. It's
when someone's preaching
not
at you. Like, tell me a story, man. Don't teach me a lesson. If I want to learn something, I'll go to school.
Or read nonfiction.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I didn't want to be telling people what to think. So I was always, Gabe is a character who's struggling with faith, and he's pretty anti-theist. But I was always careful to put a foil on the page with him that would challenge him and call him on the way he saw the world and the things that he thought. One of my favorite scene in the whole trilogy is still in Vampire, where Gabe is talking to Aaron. It's at the end of the first book, and they've kind of gone their separate ways, and they've met up after years. And Gabe, they grew up together in the same institution, and Gabe has become this bitter, jaded, faithless bastard, and Aaron is still a believer. And Gabe kind of challenges him, like, all the things that God has done to you, like all the things he's taken from you, how can you still worship this motherfucker? And Aaron calls him out on that. He says, you're looking at it the wrong way. Like, he gave me all these trials. He sent the storm when I was at sea, but he gave me the arms to row to shore. You're looking at the world the wrong way. You've got to be grateful for the things he gave you, not angry about the things he took away. So I'm careful to not be picking a side when I write. I want to show both sides of the argument, and I don't want you to know the way I think. I just want you to think when you read. Whatever assumptions that you're going into the book with, hopefully you have them challenged. So yeah, that's the intent. I don't want to be the guy on the soapbox. I hate that guy.
One of the most asked questions about the Empire series, and I'll just get right to it. What do you have against horses?
Nothing, man. I like horses. You would never know it to read those books. I actually really like horses. They're my second favorite animal aside from dogs. Horses remind me a lot of dogs. Yeah, I occasionally go horse riding with my wife. I don't know why. I guess it's, it's a pretty dangerous world, and horses are ultimately, at the end of the day, kind of fragile. So yeah, they tend to be collateral damage a lot of the way. Like, I knew when I first started writing vampire, the first scene that popped into my head was the one where Gabe has to kill his horse. Because I wanted to establish him straight away as an anti-hero. Like, in the actual text, he has to put his horse down. It gets really badly hurt, and he has to steal a horse from somebody else, which means leaving the person he stole the horse from horseless, and they're going to get killed by these enemies that are chasing him. And in the initial draft of Empire, he kills his own horse, and then he came across a family, like a husband and wife and two kids, like pulling their belongings on the back of a cart, and he stole their horse and left them to die. And I realized that made him just a thoroughly reprehensible man. I wanted him to be an anti-hero. Yeah, but I didn't want him to be that much of a bastard, so I had to change the text and to
just take the kid out and you're good.
Yeah. Just make the people he stole the horse from unlikable. But that was one of the first ideas I had to establish him as a character. So that meant I had to kill a horse kind of from the get-go, and that, I guess, set the tone for the rest of the book.
I mean, you need red shirts, so
yeah, right. There are horses that make it through the series alive. I think I make a joke about it in Dawn. There's a sequence where Jean-Francois interrupts Gabe and says, "Wait a minute, you're telling me that horse lived?"
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm conscious of the fact that it happens a lot, but it's not intentional. I actually like horses.
I just got to say, that scene where Gabe had to put Justice down was the theme that hooked me into the book. I remember I turned to my wife while I was reading it, and I was like, "Jesus Christ!" And she was like, "What?" Right. I was like, "The guy had to kill his horse," and she was just like, "Okay," because it's like, you don't realize it, but you wrote that so well that you could feel his pain having to do it. Just the way that you write, where he's talking and he just goes, "My best boy," and those quotes along with it, his internal monologue to storytelling is otherworldly in this series, especially.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks, Van. That's really nice of you to say. I put myself. It's actually kind of sad. We had to put our dog down a few years ago. We had Sam for 15 years, I think. Like, we'd had him forever, and I had to sit with him when they put him to sleep. So I kind of put myself in that place again, kind of tapped into that emotionality. It's a rough thing to let your pet go, man. They're part of the family. Yep. So yeah, kind of drawing on real life emotions for that. But I'm glad it hit hard. It's hard to write that stuff. So I'm glad that emotionality kind of carries through on the page.
Yeah, it did for sure. And that was, I think, relatively early on in the book. And it was just like,
setting a tone.
Yeah, it really did. And it continued that tone for 2,400 pages.
Yeah, but, it's weird how sometimes the death of an animal can hit harder than the death of a person.
Desensitized.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we see it on TV all the time and see it in films all the time. Whereas, there's maybe a sense of innocence to an animal that a person doesn't have. But yeah, it always hits hard when I'm writing those scenes. So I'm glad it travels through.
As far as that goes, like you just said, have you used your own experience to get that across? Just as far as the writing process goes, Gabe and Dior, every character in here is so complicated and full of emotion and really just comes right off the page. So how do you go about making those characters so lifelike, where a reader, could instantly connect with them? And throughout that process, it feels like you're watching a friend tell a story. When something bad happens to him, you're sad. How do you get that deep into it?
I mean, that was the whole intent behind the book, like the framing device of the book. One of my missions going into it is to make it feel like a conversation you were overhearing in a pub, like two people just sitting with each other and you're listening to one person tell a story. Like I studied 3 texts really intensely, like the craft of them, before I started writing Vampire. One of them was Interview with the Vampire, obviously, Anne Rice. Like Empire wouldn't exist without Interview. Another one was Name of the Wind by Pat Rothfuss, and the third one was Blood Song by Anthony Ryan. They all kind of have that framing device where a person is sitting telling a story in retrospect to a narrator, a chronicler. But in something like Name of the Wind, the chronicler really isn't present in the text. Like Kvothe is just speaking, and occasionally there'll be a chapter where he says, okay, we're going to have lunch now, and chronicler and Kvothe will have a conversation, but the chronicler really isn't present. Whereas in something like Interview, Daniel occasionally intercedes and asks Louis for clarification, or like, what do you mean by that? Or why didn't you do X instead of Y? I wanted the vibe to be more like that. I wanted to feel like a conversation. So I think that is kind of a shortcut to intimacy, that vibe you get that you're kind of listening to a conversation that you weren't invited to. The fact that Gabe is telling the story in retrospect, I think, helps, because he has the benefit of hindsight and distance, so he can call himself out on his own bullshit when he's doing something dumb, and that's assisted by Jean-Francois, because Jean-Francois is kind of sarcastic and doesn't really like Gabe, and at least at first, and so he can intercede and poke fun and call attention to Gabe's flaws as well. I think I'm really careful to show characters' flaws as well as their strengths. Like everyone in that book is really deeply flawed, in particular Gabe. Like he's essentially a broken man at the start of that book. And I think seeing people when they're down on the bones of their butt rather than at their highest highs really helps that sense of empathy and intimacy. But also I'm really careful to give the characters moments to breathe, where they just sit and talk. Some of my favorite scenes are just, in Vampire, it's just Gabe and Dior sitting around a fireside in the cold, shooting the shit. When Gabe gives Dior, when he takes the time to steal her a new coat and gives it to her when she's cold, like those moments of quiet where you're really getting to the meat of those characters, where they tell you something about themselves. You're not just seeing them react to danger, you're seeing them in a moment of comfort and vulnerability. I'm always really careful to take the time to do that. That was one of the difficulties I had with the start of Damned. I realized I must have rewritten the start of Damned maybe 10 times. Like that, of the 3 books, that was the hardest one to write, because I couldn't find a way in, and I realized I wasn't giving Gabe and Dior enough time alone on the page to just shoot the breeze and let their relationship develop and see what they were coming to mean to each other. So yeah, I'm always really mindful of those moments of quiet. Like it's a pretty high energy book. The back part of Vampire and the front half of Damned is essentially a chase scene. You're fleeing from one point of danger to a ostensible point of sanctuary, and the way chase scenes go in fantasy novels, the place of sanctuary is not actually a place of sanctuary, it's a place of danger, and so you've got to keep rolling. But I still always try and take time for quiet and introspection. That's really important. And they tend to be my favorite scenes. Like I love writing action, and I'm more at home writing action. Action is easier for me to write. Like when I'm sitting down to write an action scene today, I know I'm going to be done by 2:00. Whereas if I'm writing a dialogue scene where it's just 3 people shooting the breeze, I'll probably work through to 6 because it's harder. But they tend to be my favorite scenes at the end, because you're learning more about the characters, like you say.
Well, I think going back to Jean-Francois, I think he is the de facto protagonist of the trilogy, because he is the one that reacts with the story like the readers do. So he's kind of like the view. And I like that you did that. It especially happened more in Damned than in Empire. He kind of became more of a main character, and I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah, he became a lot more than I imagined. when I started writing the book, I had a really clear picture of Gabe and Dior. I knew who they were and what they were going to become over the course of the trilogy. Jean-Francois kind of grew on me. I had a loose shape for him. And he's not really, like you say, he doesn't really step to the forefront until Damned. He's more of a passive observer in Vampire. But, you know, as that meta structure, the framing device becomes more important. Because ultimately that's what the story is about. It's about why is Gabe in this tower and what is he doing there? Then Jean-Francois kind of moves front and center, and so I had to flesh him out as a character. And he, like you say, he serves as reader surrogate. Like he's asking the questions that ostensibly you want to know the answers to, but he also has his own drives and his own desires. You know, I like writing a hedonist. I like writing. He kind of is a bad person at the end of the day, but there's a sliver of good in him. You can kind of understand why he is the way he is. So he actually became one of my favorite characters to write. And those, like I say, those quiet moments of just he and Gabe sitting talking about something largely unrelated to the story. You know, Jean-Francois just telling you where he came from, how he grew up, how he got to be where he is. They become some of my favorite parts of the book. But he's still a bad person. He's still a multiple murderer.
He's reprehensible, but it's still
amazing. He became my favorite. You know.
Oh, that's cool. That's good to hear.
Such a good character, and you know, I'm not going to spoil anything of Dawn because obviously the book's not out yet. But the stuff that happens in Dawn, like you actually feel for him, and it's you would never have gotten that in Vampire or start to get that in Damned. And the fact that you, over the course of a trilogy, made me care about some bad person like that, like a bad character, and actually kind of root for him, it was just phenomenal. Like
that's cool to hear. I'm glad that was the intent in Dawn, to maybe put a more sympathetic face on him, to make you realize that he is a cog in a machine, and he himself is, you know, he's doing the bidding of this thing that he both loves and is absolutely terrified of. And that, you know, that informs his worldview, but at the same time, he's slowly feeling a kinship with Gabriel. Like you're sharing this incredibly intimate story, and Gabe is kind of letting down his walls and letting JF in. You can't help but feel for the guy. And in him coming to care for Gabe, you kind of get to care about him as well. That was the intent anyway. So I'm glad that worked.
Exactly. There was like parts where things happened to him, and it was just like, oh, Jean-Francois, I feel so sorry.
So we got a question, kind of follows along, but the question was, how is your prose so reasonably good?
Oh, that's nice of you to say. Thanks, man. I mean, writing is rewriting. It's a cliche to say, but you know, my first drafts are pretty rough. When I'm writing action scenes, that's the closest I ever get to flow state, where it's hard to describe. It's like I'm watching a film on the back of my eyelids, and I'm just transcribing the film that I see. And so when I'm writing action, it's almost, you know, visual becomes word, and I kind of close my eyes and let myself go. So that's when I come up with some of that weird phrasing. And I'm conscious of when I'm writing action. William Gibson was a guy that I studied a lot when I was writing. The way he structures paragraphs, the way he builds tempo into his sentence structures. Like if you're in a fast, frenetic scene, your sentences become, you know, 2-3 words, just fragments, to invoke that sense of pace. Where when you're in a quiet moment, your language can become a little more languid to match that. William Gibson was a really good mentor in that sense. Not actual mentor, I don't know the guy, but like studying the way he writes. But yeah, I don't know. Writing is rewriting is the best golden rule in that sense. Like initially when I'm drafting, I'm just trying to get the structure down. I'm trying to get the bones of the scene and come to the purpose of it. You know, I'm writing a scene where we learn a little bit more about a character's background. So what is that background? I get down the bones of that skeleton, and then I'll go back and polish until the language starts to shine. But that's usually kind of second and third drafts job. When I'm initially drafting, I'm just trying to get the bones down, and then I put the meat and skin on later. Sometimes a cool turn of phrase will come to me straight away. Sometimes a cool turn of phrase will be the impetus for the scene. Like I come up with a cool idea and I want to convey that. So I think of a scene that will let me do that. But oftentimes, yeah, it's just a matter of sitting your ass in the chair and writing every day, man. I start every day's writing session by reading what I wrote the day before, and I'll edit that. So I kind of polish it up.
Yeah.
And that puts me in the mindset of the book that I'm working on. It kind of puts me back in the mood and gives me a springboard to bounce into the next lot of words that I need to get down. But it also kind of gives me an opportunity to be polishing that text all the time. So usually by the time I've finished the book, it's not a draft 1. It's probably like a draft 4 or 5, because I've been constantly rereading it and rewriting it as I go.
Yeah. I just want to point out, Layla says your prose is the reason why she went back to writing. So,
oh, that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's really nice to say.
Mo said it makes him mad how good it is. So, just want to shout out.
That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Some of the kind of writing aspects that you changed, I'm going to stick with Dan for a second, because I have a fan question from Lorraine, who is also an author. She's going to be in Edinburgh. And
sick. All right.
I'm going to say hi, but it's 1 o'clock in the morning there, so I have a question for her.
Okay. Thanks for staying up.
But while you were writing that, which was a very cool aspect on things, but she wanted to know, since she loved the addition of the story when the Highlanders and their animalistic traits were introduced, where did you get the influence from that? Like, Phoebe and the rest of all of
The
that.
dust dancers.
Yeah. I mean, the core of it is, Gaelic culture. That's where my family is from. I'm of Irish descent. But yeah, the impetus in terms of the aesthetic and the core of the language, the etymology of it, the naming conventions. Yeah, I mean, it's loosely based in Gaelic. I kind of drew inspiration from Gaelic culture in that, and then took it and extrapolated on it, and hopefully made it my own. But there are certain visual cues. It's kind of like, an iceberg. You can see 20% of the surface, and then there's 80% of the surface underneath it. Not the surface, the mass underneath it. Sometimes in showing that 20%, you can imply the 80% that's there. And sometimes visual aesthetics and naming conventions are kind of a shortcut to a mood or a vibe. And so, yeah, placing that culture up high and giving their etymology and naming conventions roots in Gaelic culture, it kind of gives you a vibe straight away. It's a shortcut. It's a shortcut to feelings. So you don't need to build out and flesh out the entire world. You can kind of lean on what people know and are familiar with in the real world, extrapolate on that in a fantasy sense. And that does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of giving the place, making it feel real. So yeah, that's kind of what I did in the Nemanite books as well, leaning on a real world culture being ancient Rome, kind of twisting it and making it my own, but still relying on people's knowledge of the real world, or at least real world history, to help fill in the impression of that 80% below the waterline. Yeah, that's the intent anyway.
Again, continuing with Dan for another second, because one of the major changes between Empire and Damned was the introduction of Gabe's sister as a POV character, which was a game changer. I love Empire, and I didn't know how it would be better. She, as a POV character, made Damned better. So
that's cool to hear.
That's why it's my favorite. Is that 50% mark when that happens? It's just like, what? And that's when Damned became my favorite of the trilogy, was because of Celine.
Oh, that's cool to hear. Like Damned kicked my ass. Damned was the hardest of the books to write. Like up until Damned, Vampire was the hardest book that I'd ever written. Like Vampire almost broke me. I thought I wasn't going to be able to finish it. I thought I had bitten off more than I could chew. But Damned was even harder. And weirdly enough, when I launched that book, because it had kicked the shit out of me, I wasn't sure whether it was good. I'd kind of lost all perspective on it. So when a lot of people say Damned is their favorite of the two, which at first really surprised me, but then I realized I had just been through the wars on that book so bad that I had lost sight of the fact that I actually wrote a really fucking cool book.
Yeah.
And I think Celine is at the heart of that 50% twist, like you say. But that goes back to Interview with the Vampire and Anne Rice. Like that's lifted straight from Anne. Like the first book is Louis' POV and the second book is Lestat. And you realize that, oh, wait, maybe there's more to this guy than what I thought. I've only heard one version of this tale. I've only heard one side of this story. So yeah, introducing her. I mean, there's more at play, and I won't get spoilery because it kind of goes into Dawn. But yeah, there's a cool dynamic in flipping.
They're not happy siblings. Let's just put it that way.
No, they fucking hate each other, which is always fun to write. I mean, I've got sisters and I love them dear, but we've had some amazing fights over the years. But also, yeah, like giving the reader the realization that, oh wait, I have only heard one side of this story. I've only seen one perspective on this entire world, and maybe there's more going on here than this guy is even aware of. You know, he was raised in a particular way in a particular position in the world, and the world is vast and there's a lot more going on than he knows. Gabe isn't omniscient. He only knows what he knows. So yeah, introducing that thread of doubt, it was a lot of fun, and their dynamic when they're on the page together is a lot of fun to write as well.
Oh yeah.
It's so much fun to read, and she was such a good counterpoint to him, but also did such a good job at letting us learn about him more and, you know, driving his emotions. Like the way that I talked about the Justice dying and, well, getting killed in Empire, it's a testament to your writing. And again, this isn't a spoiler because we're talking about Damned, but I remember reading when after Dior died, and she was narrating to Jean-Francois, and she was saying something like, I've been to here, I've been there, and I can tell you that I've never heard the sound that came out of my brother. And it was like, you're still connecting with the other characters through those POVs. And that was when that transcended to me. And it was, I've said it before, this is a Mount Rushmore trilogy. And
thanks, man.
Absolutely.
It's in moments like that.
That's awesome to hear. Thanks. I really appreciate that. Yeah. It's it's the book is really Dior's story. It's Dior's journey told through the eyes of Gabe and Celine in later books. But weirdly enough, when I was writing Damned, there's a whole sequence in Dawn where you find out Celine's backstory, like how the bridging material between the moment she dies, which we already knew about, and the point where she comes back into Vampire. There's like 15 years, I think, go by. And in Dawn, we find out what happened in those 15 years. But I actually wrote that whole sequence for Damned. Originally, it was going to appear in that second book. And the structure just didn't allow me to do it. You get a glimpse before the big battle, like Celine tells Gabe a little bit about where she's been, and you get the impression there's more for her to tell. But the pacing would have just been off if she dropped this big chunk of backstory right before this enormous conflict at Dunmergen. So in the end, I shelved that whole section and put it into Dawn, but it really helped having taken the time to write where she was and how she got to the point where we met her, and kind of being informed about all the terrible things that had happened to her. That really made her a real character in my head. So initially I thought I was just going to throw all that stuff away. But it was still a really valuable experience to kind of ground me in her and who she was and how she saw the world. And then I realized there was an opportunity to actually use it in Dawn. So in the end, I'm glad I got to use it. I think that's one of my favorite parts of the third book. But yeah, it really helped to have a sense of who she was and where she came from and why she sees the world the way she does. Like both she and Gabe are products of religious indoctrination.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very similar.
Yeah, but Celine's almost. I mean, she's in a cult.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like ultimately, the Asani are a cult. I won't tell you what they want or what they're about, but she's been. She got taken basically as a kid. She's like an 18-year-old girl by the time she gets drawn into their web, and she gets raised up in the shadow as someone who believes fanatically in what he's teaching her, and so she in turn becomes a fanatic. And her journey in Dawn in particular is learning to question the worldview that she has taken for granted this entire time, understanding that, like her brother, maybe there's more to this whole thing than what she's initially led to believe. So yeah, she's a really fun character, but I'm glad you like her. She's a lot of fun to write. She did really make that second book come alive in my mind.
Oh, 100%. And the thing that, Pete touched on, what I really liked is the dichotomy of the POVs. Because, but then with their interaction with John Francois, like,
Right.
I don't, this is very small, and this could get into the next big question that we have to ask, obviously, because everybody probably asks you. But there's a scene where Jean Francois and Celine are talking in Dawn, and Celine does a fade to black.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And he goes, "What? You're not going to talk about it?" And she's like, "Why
Right.
would anybody talk about that?"
Yeah.
Because obviously, the big question everybody wants to know is, what got you into writing all the smut back in Nevernight, and then obviously in this book? Like, how did you decide, or why, I guess, or what inspired you to start putting more into it?
It's a really interesting question. I don't actually know what prompted me. I do remember the moment that I decided I was going to do it, and I was incredibly nervous about it. I think in part, going back to what I was talking about before, I had bought into the idea that men can't write sex scenes. There was a whole bunch of memes going around on the internet at the time, and there were shithole websites like HuffPost and fucking Mary Sue putting up these bad examples of men writing terrible sex scenes. And men can write terrible sex scenes, but women can write terrible sex scenes too. Like, bad writing is not exclusive to any gender. But I kind of bought into the idea that dudes just shouldn't attempt it. But then I kind of got mad about it and decided, well, no one can tell me what to fucking write. I'm going to try it, and if it sucks, it sucks. But at least I'll have tried.
Yeah.
So what I did was I got my wife. My wife is a voracious reader. She's probably the most well-read person that I know. She reads a lot of romance. So I went to her and said, look, I'm going to give this a shot. It could be a train wreck, but I need you to school me. I need you to give me like your top 20 scenes of all time, like the best, smokiest shit you can find me, and I'm just going to sit and study it. And so she actually recruited a bunch of her friends, and they basically assembled a greatest hits compilation. And I came home one day, and there's a stack of books on the coffee table in our living room, and they're all marked with Post-it notes, and they're all color coded, like pink is FF and purple is MM, and blue is threesomes and whatever else. And I just sat and read pornography for like 4 days straight. It was weird. And I got a text from a mate like halfway through. He says, "Hey buddy, what are you doing today?" And I wrote back, I'm like, "Dude, you wouldn't believe what my job. My job is strange sometimes." But yeah, I basically read a whole bunch of those scenes, and I think they were all written by women, female writers. And that was kind of my crash course. And I came to those scenes from that perspective, and wrote with those sensibilities in mind. And I was really fucking nervous about doing it. I didn't think I could, but all of my beta readers are ladies. Like, I've got 5 people who crit me, like read the book in the raw form and give me feedback. And they're all really smart and really well-read ladies. So they call me on my bullshit if I'm guilty of it. But all of them are really complimentary about the scene. And so that kind of gave me the courage to push it out. And the reaction to it has been, everyone's sensibilities are different, and someone's too much is another person's not enough. But on the whole, the reaction has been really positive. And I've noticed that my readership is probably 70% ladies. And I'm pretty unique in the grimdark field in that sense. Like most of the people who read grimdark are dudes, but you go to like Joe Abercrombie's signing, there's a lot more dudes in the audience, whereas in mine, it's mostly ladies. I think that partly comes from the grounding that I laid down in Nevernight, but I think also it's partly just the way that I write. And I think that comes back to that early schooling that my wife gave me. So as to why I do it, I don't know. I feel if I'm comfortable writing a scene where someone is getting disemboweled or decapitated or stabbed 30 times in the chest, and I detail every single blow of that knife, which I've done. Like there's a scene in Dark Dawn where Mia kills the king of scoundrels. She teleports up into his lap and just stabs him to death. And that scene goes for like 4 pages of her just fucking murdering this guy and then sawing off his head with a knife, which is really hard to do. And I go into all the gory details about that. Why am I not comfortable going into that same level of detail with a scene of intimacy? Like, why is it construed as harder or more acceptable for me to be writing tremendous violence, but people get squeaked out by 2 people who love each other having sex?
Right.
There's as much, if not more, emotional resonance in a scene of love and intimacy than there is in violence. But it's weird. It's acceptable for you to go to a big Hollywood blockbuster and see skyscrapers getting knocked down and cities destroyed and worlds exploded. But everyone's a little bit weirded out by 2 people who love each other sharing a sense of physical intimacy with each other. So, I kind of wanted to challenge that notion. I figured if I was comfortable enough in writing this tremendous violence, then I should be comfortable in exploring, more positive emotions. So I tried not to let myself get constrained by those conceptions and just rolled forward. It was kind of a little bit fuck you, I guess, in terms of why I did it. It was kind of fuck you. It was, you can't tell me what to do. This is my book. I'm going to do what I want. If you don't like it, then that's cool. Don't buy it. Tell everyone that I'm a terrible person on the internet. Join the fucking queue. But yeah, you're not going to tell me what I can and can't write. You can read it or not. You can like it or not. That's up to you. But what happens in the pages of my books, that's up to me. So yeah, contrarianism.
I think it's very much shows how you create your characters and make them well-rounded, because even though you can have these vampires be so sadistic and horrible, they still need that, or most of them still want that interaction, like that other feelings. So it just shows the well-roundedness of all your characters, because we all have different emotions, and we don't all want to kill people, but you can't just have that in a book and call it a day.
Right. I mean, that to me is the really interesting aspect of vampires and immortality as a concept. The idea that on a long enough timeline, everything goes away. If you live for 400 years, you've probably done everything that you can think of for stimulation. Like, you would just be so fucking bored with life after 400 years. You've done it all. You've seen it all. You've tasted it all. You've been everywhere. You've had every conversation 1,000 times. You've had, you've committed tremendous violence. You've had moments of physical intimacy. Anything that enters your brain, you've probably indulged. And by the end of hundreds and hundreds of years, you would be desperate for something new, some form of intimacy, some sense of connection. That's what, I'm not getting into super spoilery territory when I talk about this, but that's what attracts Fabian to Gabriel. Like, Gabriel is the first person to make him angry in hundreds of years. Like when Gabe kills Law in book 1 and Fabian finds himself actually outraged for the first time in forever, that makes him feel alive again, and he wants to feel that again. And so he finds himself attracted to this guy, even though this guy's his enemy and wants him dead. He's fascinated by him. He can't leave him alone because he makes him feel something, whether it be rage or disdain or stung pride or whatever's motivating that emotional connection, there is an emotional connection. So yeah, that's a really interesting idea for me to explore. Immortality as a concept is really fascinating to me, and the idea of living forever, it sounds like a pretty cool deal when you're first thinking about it, but when you actually sit down and consider what it would look like, it actually becomes a real hellish existence. It's really torturous. The idea that everyone you know and everything you love and the environment around you, the cities that you grew up, the language that you were raised with will all go away and you stay the same forever. That's fucking terrifying, man. So yeah, that's kind of at the root of Fabian's character. He is just terribly, terribly bored, and Gabe makes him feel alive again.
Yeah, and it's like Bill just said, how well-rounded your characters are. The supporting cast in this trilogy, whether it's Lachlan and people you see occasionally but are part of the crew, and even some new people that show up in Dawn, like a couple other of the Princes of Forever, who I'm being super vague to prevent any spoilers,
Sure.
but just the backdrop that you've given throughout the first two books and even in the start of the third, how do you focus on the character building to the point where people that you've just heard of can inspire such a sense of dread, especially in the Princes of Forever category? Because a couple of them show up who you've never seen before, and instantly when you see this person appeared, you're like, oh shit. Like,
Fuck.
No. And it's like, we never even saw them. But how do you outline the characters and their personality, everything that goes into that, to have them have such an impact before we even read about them?
I mean, I took a leaf out of George R. R. Martin's book. Like I remember reading it's Storm of Swords before the Red Viper shows up. The Red Viper is in that book for like 2 chapters.
Yeah.
But everyone is talking about this fucking guy before you see him. Like people are terrified of him. People are enticed and attracted by him. Anyone who knows him is affected by him. And to hear other people talking about him before you meet him gives you that sense that you're describing. So that was my intent with Kestrel. Like before you see her on the page, there's 3 or 4 scenes where people are just talking about how fucking horrible she is. How terrifying she is, what she actually represents, because you've never, like the previous princes that you've met, Danton's a bloodhound, Laura is kind of a seductress. You've not met a warrior boss before you meet Kestrel. So yeah, I wanted to give a sense that A, she's different from the princes that you've met before, but B, that she has this reputation that affects everyone around her. Like she's kind of a Voldemort character. Like the mention of her name makes people kind of turn their heads and say, holy shit, I heard this story about her and let me tell you about it. So yeah, I kind of cribbed from Martin in that sense. Like Red Viper's a great character. But you have a sense of who he is before he ever appears on the page. And he's there for a good time, not a long time. He's not actually in that book for very long at all, but by the time he arrives, you know who that guy is. It's like that moment in those old westerns where the guy walks into the saloon and the saloon doors swing shut and the piano player stops playing and everyone kind of turns around and looks. I wanted to give that same vibe. So yeah, thanks, George.
I want to piggyback off of that just a little bit. This minor spoiler for book 3, but you have the 5 bloodlines, but throughout the series, we very rarely touch on Ilion. Is that how you pronounce it? And we only see them a little bit. Was that always an intent to kind of shortchange almost that line?
I mean, there's only so much room in the trilogy.
Yeah.
So you can't spend as much time with all the lines. Ultimately the struggle is between the boss and Gabe. But also I wanted each of the lines to feel different. Like the Elon are called the Whispers. They're meant to be kind of creatures of subtlety. They're power behind the throne characters rather than sitting on the throne. There's a line, it's hard to talk about without getting into spoilers, but there's a line from an Elon in book 3. I'm trying to remember what the line is. It's like he says, the boss can wear the crown, I've already plucked the jewels. Like, I don't need to be the guy sitting on the chair. Why do I care? The guy sitting on the chair is the one with the target on his back. I already have the things that I want. So I wanted to give them a different vibe. I wanted them to be creatures of shadow. Like, their power set is kind of more subtle. The Voss, they walk through a rain of burning arrows and fire and they don't get hurt. The Divok punch down castle walls. The Elon manipulate your emotions. They make you feel a different way. They make you feel in a way that you don't want to, or actually always really felt, and you're only just becoming awakened to it. So that was part of the intent as well. They're shadowy characters. They're vampires of secrecy. And, you can imagine in a different world, you get the sense that they're a lot more powerful back in the day when vampires kind of had to hide from the sun. They were creatures of secrecy. They would have been in their element back in the day. And now, vampires can walk freely and things have become a little more grotesque, a little more overt. And I tried to give the sense that they have a kind of disdain for that. You only get to meet a couple of them in Dawn, but hopefully that's the vibe that I'm giving, that they're viewing all this mess as a little bit tawdry, a little bit grotesque.
It's like the French aristocracy, kind of.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, they don't like to get their hands dirty. They don't like to be seen getting down in the mud. But yeah, and part of it is just space, man. Like, you got 3 books. The first book is kind of dedicated to Voss and overall world building. The second book, you get more of a view of the Divok. The Asani are kind of getting built up in the background all the time as this force. The Chaston are part of the framing device, so you get an idea of who they are. So yeah, the Elon do kind of get shortchanged in terms of the amount of page time they get, but hopefully in the time that they're there, you still get a sense of who they are and how they think. I wanted to give each line a different vibe, a different mindset that's being driven by these progenitors. Like, you get shaped by your parents, and these are parents who never die. So everything that gets brought up underneath them, they have an influence over. So I wanted to give each line a definite flavor.
And one question that I ask pretty much everyone, because I'm such a non-creative that it always intrigues me to hear people's responses to it, especially since we've asked about the prose before, the emotion that goes into the lines and everything, all the characters' backstory. When you're writing and you come up with, we've said a couple so far. Everyone has highlights of lines, their favorites and everything like that. But do you realize right away, I just knocked this little passage or line or whatever, I just knocked it out of the fucking park? Or do you realize that on an edit, or does a beta reader say, highlight and just go, this was really well done? Or is it that feeling of just nailed that?
It's a bit of both. Sometimes you just know. Like, sometimes you come away from a scene thinking, yeah, I fucking nailed it. And, like I say, I go back and reread everything the day after. And if I'm still feeling that way about a scene the day after on reread, I know I probably kicked a goal. But sometimes lines resonate that I don't expect at all. And it's only when I see, people tattooing them on their bodies that I realize, oh shit, this actually resonated in a way that I don't expect. Because, the books do take on a life of their own after a while. You kind of give them to the world, and the world makes of them what it will. And they come to mean more to the people who read them ultimately than they meant to me. It's like I was saying before, the Nevernight books, I've got letters from people telling me that those books got them through things I can't even imagine, like the worst that life can throw at you. And I realized that this character that I wrote, sitting on my couch in Melbourne in my Ugg boots and track pants, has got someone through the darkest time of their life. That is really humbling to me. But the lines sometimes work that way as well. You write something that you think, oh, yeah, that's cool, and you roll on with the next thing. And 18 months later, you see somebody who's carved those words into their body for the rest of their lives. So yeah, and sometimes the lines that I expect to resonate don't as well, because they just resonate with me. Like, all readers are different, and the people that write these books are different as well. So your perceptions of the art is going to be shaped by who you are as a person and the things that you've lived through. So something might resonate with you that doesn't necessarily resonate with another person. Some of my favorite lines in the books, no one seems to notice or care about. So yeah, it's a matter of perspective as well. But there is a couple of moments in Dawn where I get to write things that really feel true to me. There was one moment, I think one of my favorite lines in Dawn came out of an edit letter that I got on Damned. One of my editors, I was describing some fight that Gabriel was in, and one of my editors said, "I don't know, this is kind of boring to me because I know that Gabriel is alive at the end of it. I'm not really excited by this scene." I think she was just having a bad day that day. But that actually got me thinking about it, because if I'm doing my job right, you do lose yourself in the moment, and you're kind of in the mud and the shit with Gabe, and you're not really thinking about the fact that he's telling all of this story through hindsight.
Yeah.
You know that he's alive at the end of it. He's not in any physical danger at all throughout the entire trilogy because he's telling the fucking story at the end of it. You know he lives. And so that actually got me thinking about that dynamic. And there's a moment in Dawn where Jean-Francois plays the role of my editor, and he kind of interrupts Gabe and says, I appreciate you trying to build a sense of drama early on, but I know you're not dead at the end of this. You weren't in any danger. You're sitting here telling me the story. Mm-hmm. And Gabe says to him, this has never been a story about whether I won or lost. It's about the price that I paid for the lie of victory. Mm-hmm. And that to me resonated really hard. Like, it's not about whether you win or lose. It's about what you give up to think you won. That's ultimately the truth of that entire trilogy to me. So, but yeah, that just resonates with me because I'm the one who wrote it, and most people will probably breeze right past that line and not think anything of it. So you're shaped in part by who you are. Your reaction to the art that you absorb is shaped at least in part by the life that you lived and the way you see the world. So that's the really cool thing about writing art, seeing the way different people resonate in different ways. It's like what we were talking about before, the way people reacted to Celine. I really didn't anticipate that reaction. I had no idea she was going to resonate the way that she did. And it wasn't until I saw the reaction to Damn that I realized, oh, okay, this character added a really cool dimension to this story. And I gave her the opportunity to spread her wings a little bit more in Dawn. So yeah, it's cool the way different people perceive different things and react to different lines. It's one of the fun things about creating art.
So as a fellow author, I always like to ask these questions. Are you a pantser or a plotter? Because obviously there is stuff that came out in the very end of Dawn that you foreshadow
right
very well, subtly, I will add, very well in Vampire. So I'm sure you had that part plotted, but the rest of the book, are you more of a plotter or let the characters do with it as they will?
I was originally completely a pantser. The whole Nevernight trilogy was pantsed. I just made that shit up as I went. I had a rough idea of what the meta plot was going to be, and what the ultimate resolution of the trilogy would be in a meta sense in terms of the War of the Gods and the way that all played out. What the origins of the City of Godsgrave were. I knew that to begin with, but in terms of where the story was going to go, I had no idea. I would just wake up in the morning and start writing, and whatever happened, happened. Like when Mia gets her arm chopped off in the Red Church at the end of Act 1 of Nevernight, I had no idea that was going to happen until I was writing the scene. So I'm actually amazed that trilogy is coherent as it is, given that I made it up. But I tried to do the same thing when I was writing Vampire, and the book was just exploding in word count. It was just too fucking long and too convoluted. I think I probably wrote, like, the book is 240,000 words, I think, give or take. I probably wrote about 400,000 words on Vampire and just cut the rest. I was just wandering off into cul-de-sacs, and there was a whole bunch of characters that I had built that really weren't contributing as much as they could have. I started writing the two storylines in parallel, like old Gabe and young Gabe. And then eventually I had to branch off just into young Gabe, because obviously the things that happened in his past were going to inform who he was in the present. And that young Gabe storyline was as long as the whole book. And so I realized things were just getting out of control. And so I had to put on my big boy pants and say, listen, dude, you've got to sit down and actually plot this book. You can't just make it up as you go along. And that was kind of a moment. I realized that I was going to blow my deadline. I'd never blown a deadline before, but I needed to kind of rip the book apart and go back to basics and sit down and actually plot the thing. Weirdly enough, I had learned how to plot with my co-authored stuff. Like I co-authored 6 books with Amy Kaufman. And when you're co-authoring, you have to plot, because your co-author needs to know what you're thinking, what you're doing. Like if you're writing the secondary character and your co-author just blows them up in one of their chapters, like, oh, dude, I was planning on doing something cool with that guy. So you have to plot. It's the nature of collaboration. Yep. And so I learned to plot books working with Amy. So yeah, I sat down and plotted the rest of the book. And from that point on, I plot everything now. I'm a total convert. Usually what I'll do is I'll plot in sections. Like I'll plot out an act to a crunch point, and I will leave what happens thereafter open-ended, because the story can change as I write, and I like to leave the story and the characters room to grow and do things that I don't expect. But I do have a far more concrete idea of the way things are going to play out than I used to. So some of the things that play out in Dawn, yeah, I've been planning since Vampire. But weirdly enough, my favorite moment in Dawn was a moment that I did not see coming. There's a twist. I think it's at the end of part 3. After this big battle scene, there's a revelation there, and I had no idea that was going to come until I was writing it. I was living in a city called Toledo in Spain. I went there after the Damned tour and just kind of booked a flat there, and it's this great old medieval walled fortress city that the Crusaders built. So when you read the Battle of San Maximil, basically that's happening in Toledo. And I would get up in the morning and write, and lunchtime I would just go for a walk around the walls. Like all the fortifications are still there, and I kind of built the whole city of San Maximil based on Toledo. But I was walking on the walls one day, and it was like this idea fell out of the sky. There's no other way to explain it. It's going back to what I was saying before about just being alone with your thoughts. I wouldn't take my iPhone. I wouldn't listen to music. I would just walk and think. And this idea just came out of fucking nowhere, man. And it was really strange, and I hadn't considered it, but it was intriguing to me. So I went back to the flat and I wrote that twist over the course of the next couple of days. And after I had finished writing it, I knew that it was right. And it was like the whole book just locked into place. It was like I was looking at a jigsaw puzzle, and the puzzle didn't complete itself, but all the pieces were suddenly oriented the right way, and all I needed to do was put them together. And writing the rest of that book was just like skating downhill. So I knew that idea was right, and that just came out of nowhere. I had no idea it was coming, that it was going to happen until it happened. But it made the book, to me, that's the idea that makes the book the coolest of the trilogy. And that just fell out of the sky. So yeah, I plot, but I like to leave the text room to surprise me and the characters to do things that are unexpected.
And that probably translates well to, like you said, you were a big fan of writing action, and the ending of Damned is like a 250-page battle scene.
Yeah.
And it is epic beyond words, but I have to say, like, while you're reading it, it's never confusing for all the chaos and hectic stuff that's going on, and you don't know what way is up. It was still very clear to read and follow along with. How do you go about writing such epic scenes like that, where there's so much going on and complexities along the way, but not, kind of throwing the reader out there to be like, you'll figure it out?
Honestly, I think it comes from my background in wargaming. I used to play minis like 40K and stuff like that. And so I can really easily visualize the movement of mass troops and, the way they bounce off fortifications and stuff. Like I can see the God's eye view of those battles in my head. It comes from playing like Warhammer 3 online and stuff. Like I say, I see the movie playing in my head, and I'm transcribing what is happening in the film that exists in my mind onto the page. It's kind of edited the way a film would be edited. That's just the way my brain works. I don't know why. So I think that helps. But yeah, honestly, like playing D&D with minis and playing 40K and like also studying history. Like I do have a fascination with historical battles and understanding the way, siege warfare works, the way mass troop movement works, the way, a tiny stone dropped into the lake can cause ripples that will shift an entire battlefield. Like history is replete with instances like that. So having a knowledge of big pivotal historical battles is also really useful as well. Like the siege of Constantinople, when Mehmed the Conqueror took Constantinople, for example, that's been cribbed on by dozens of writers. Like George Battle Blackwater Bay, the attack on King's Landing is riffed straight off the siege of Constantinople, like Tyrion's chain. There was a chain across the horn of Constantinople as well. So yeah, having an understanding of historical battles is also really useful too. But wargaming, man, it gives you a really clear. Sometimes I will actually sit on my study floor with my minis and actually choreograph the battle, the way the troops are going to move and where the pinch points will be and what the twists and the ebb and flow in battle is going to be, just by sitting down with minis on the floor like a huge fucking nerd that I am. So.
So they want to know what 40K army do you play?
I don't play 40K anymore. I used to play Space Marines back in the day. I played Ultramarines. I was like Mr. Vanilla. I also had a NID army as well, but all my minis got stolen like way back in the day. I actually enjoyed painting more than I enjoyed gaming. I just like have an artistic temperament, so I really love the painting aspect of mini gaming. And someone broke into my fucking house and stole my minis. Cleaned me out. I must have been a nerd who broke in, because he took all my PlayStation games. He took all my 40K armies. I don't know what he was going to do with them. He's probably playing with them to this day.
Hopefully he does, because it's probably worth money.
I mean, maybe. He took all my Necromunda gangs. I had this amazing Necromunda gang. I was still dark about it like 15 years later. And so I stopped mini gaming after that, and I do most of my wargaming online and stuff now. But I still play D&D every week. And the way we run our combats, we do through minis on a grid map and whatever. So having an appreciation, even in small scale fight choreography, having an appreciation of just the way bodies move in space, how long it's going to take me to get to you. I've got a sword, you've got a gun, I'm 30 feet away from you. You're going to plug me before I get there. Like having just a basic understanding of the physicality of melee combat can be really augmented just by mini gaming. So yeah, I think actually tabletop gaming is a really good foundational tool to have in your pocket as a writer.
I want to ask one more question about those books before I pivot to more fun stuff quickly. Favorite vampire? What is it? It doesn't have to be from your books, but who's your favorite vampire? You've replied to me a couple of times on Twitter with Damon from Vampire Diaries.
I love Damon. I'm a huge Vampire Diaries fan, and Damon is the catalyst of that show. I like him because, yeah, he is the spark to the puddle of petrol. But my favorite vampire of all time is Claudia from Interview with a Vampire, for that exact reason. Like, she is the spark to that pile of tinder that is Louis and Lestat. She's the fuel that drives that whole narrative. Her arrival makes everything that comes thereafter in that book and all the tragedy that unfolds. She's the catalyst. So again, she's like a red viper. She's there for a good time, not a long time. But she's the vampire that makes that whole book come alive. But there's also a really fascinating idea behind her as a character, the idea of a creature that's decades old, trapped in the body of a child, and just being constantly fucking furious about it. Like the feeling of helplessness and smallness and the way the world views you. You know, you have the mind of an 80-year-old and people treat you like a 5-year-old. the rage that lies at the heart of Claudia is really fascinating to me. And I kind of riff on that with Marin in Empire of the Dawn. There's just something really cool about that idea, being viewed by the world as a perpetual child and yet being older than everyone in the room and having seen more and done more than any of them could imagine, but they automatically treat you as an inferior, as a curiosity at best. And the appertaining rage to that condition, there's something really cool in that. So yeah, Claudia's my fave. I love Lestat, I love Louis. I love the Lost Boys.
Can't go
I love
wrong
the
there.
love the gang in Near Dark. Have you guys seen Near Dark?
No.
Oh man, go watch Near Dark. It's a vampire film from the 80s. It's Catherine Bigelow's first feature film. She went on to do Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker. She's a great director.
Yeah.
Near Dark is about a group of redneck vampires driving around an RV in the South. They like put up alfoil over the window during the day. They just drive this RV around the South and just commit mayhem. And it's got a lot of the old James Cameron alumni like Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton and stuff. It's a fucking great.
Oh, I know that movie now. Yeah.
It's like really low res. It's like they're just a bunch of shit kickers. They don't even have bangs. They use straight razors and stuff. It's like dirty, gritty hillbilly vampires. It's so fucking good. But yeah, Claudia gets number one.
That's a good answer. That leads into my next question, because I know I read it online. I couldn't find the exact thing, but what you're working on next, it was pitched as part Tarantino, part, and I forget what the second half of it is, but if you're using Tarantino as a pitch, what is your favorite movie by him? And you've got to just be a big film buff then, huh?
Oh man, favorite Tarantino. It's a really hard question.
It's impossible.
Probably Hateful Eight.
Wow.
I've seen that movie a lot. Hateful Eight is a masterpiece, man. I love dogs. Pulp Fiction is obviously
True Romance.
I love True Romance. I mean, he's obviously got better with time, as you would expect him to. There's the seeds of real greatness in True Romance. There's a couple of amazing scenes in there. But in terms of a film overall, as holds together and the way it's built, and the limitations, like Hateful Eight is basically like, it's like a stage play. You can perform that on a stage. It's basically one set. There's the lead to Minnie's bar, and then everything happens in Minnie's bar. Like 2 hours.
Didn't he do that after the script got leaked? Didn't he do it as a stage play?
Oh, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It would totally work as a live.
Because the script got leaked or something before they were going to film it, and I think he got pissed and did it as a stage. But yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's basically a bunch of people sitting in a bar talking for 2 hours. And you would think that's the most boring film ever, but there's so much being built up. There's so much revelation slowly bubbling to the surface. Everyone is there for a different reason. Everyone has an agenda. Everyone has a secret. And it all plays out. Yeah, it's masterful. Like there's some amazing scenes that he's done. There's a couple of scenes in Inglourious Bastards that I sometimes just watch for fun and I just study. There's a scene, start of Inglourious Bastards, where the Jew hunter is sitting in a farmhouse in France talking to a guy who's hiding, I think, 3 Jewish people in his floorboards under his house. And it's like 10 or 15 minutes long. And again, it's just 2 guys sitting at a kitchen table talking. And it's unbearable by the end of it. The tension is just ratcheting slowly up until you feel like it can't get any worse, and it does. And I studied that scene over and over, and I used that as the foundation for the scene in Vampire when Voss comes to Gabriel's house and they just sit at the kitchen table and talk. And you slowly realize why he's there. And the end of that scene has been a foregone conclusion from the start of it, but it's only in the resolution of the scene that you understand what it is. Yeah, that scene in Inglourious Bastards was the foundational text for The Worst Day, that chapter called The Worst Day, which I think is probably the heaviest chapter I've ever written in my life. I finished writing that. It was in the middle of COVID. I was writing that. So the whole world's coming to an end all around me, and I'm writing this desperately unhappy, sad scene. And I like slammed the laptop shut and just pushed it away. And I couldn't come back to the story for like 4 days. I would just walk past the laptop and look at it like, you know what you did. So yeah, Tarantino's a master. There's also that scene in Bastards where they're in that basement pub playing the guessing game with the cards, and the SS officer is slowly revealing that he knows all along that this guy's an Englishman.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a bunch of people talking at a table. And that's where he's at his element. So yeah, he's a master craftsman. I love his work, love his dialogue. So yeah, I pitched the new one as Inglourious Bastards meets Game of Thrones, also like Suicide Squad meets Game of Thrones. Yeah, and I think I'm 140,000 words into it. It's probably going to be about 200, 220 by the time it's done. So I'm hoping to have that wrapped by March next year.
Wow.
And it's same kind of vibes as Vampire, but it's a little more, I want to say, fun. Like Vampire is
Dreary.
Dreary. Shit, man. And I've been living with that heaviness for like 6 years. So I wanted to do. It's still grimdark. It's still gritty and bloody and sexy, but there's a little bit more fun in it. It's kind of tonally at times it's a little like the footnotes in Nevernight. It's a little bit self-referential, and there's a couple of characters in there who are purely for comedy relief, just so it's not as relentlessly bleak as Vampire. But yeah,
me and Pete were talking after reading Dawn. We were just like, how the fuck does he do something after this? Like, how? Because
I got to do something slightly different. I don't think I can top in terms of my grimdark. I think Vampire is going to be my opus. I can't go heavier than that. It's like,
no.
It's like where do you go after that? So yeah, I'm keeping the same aesthetic and same vibes, but yeah, it's a little more. There's a little more James Gunn in there, I guess. There's a little more
levity.
It's like a team dynamic. It's a group of people. There's like 6 POVs in the book. And again, it's Tarantino-esque in that all of them have a dark secret and all of them have a secret agenda. They're kind of thrown into this melting pot together for reasons beyond their control and forced to work together. But yeah, I'm trying to keep it a little bit lighter. And I'm doing some weird design stuff. Because I'm a graphic designer by trade. I came up as an art director and I'm kind of visually minded. So I'm doing things. I don't know if you've read my Illuminate books that I do with Amy, but there's some weird kind of graphical and typographical stuff that we do within the pages of the book that I'm also going to do in the new thing as well. There's like a form of chaos magic that distorts the way the type and the illustrations function on the page, which is a lot of fun. It's a little bit weird, but yeah.
So does that, can you divulge if like the world is inspired by something? Because you obviously had Japan, you had ancient Rome, this was Vampire.
It's inspired by Cold War era Berlin. Like a city kind of split down the middle. There's been the two warring sides, Eastern and Western powers. The Western powers ostensibly win the war, but the Eastern powers, their government gets overthrown and a new power kind of rises in their shadow. And this city is on the frontier between the two countries. So the Western Eastern half are controlled by the two different imperial powers of the day. And pretty much all of the action in the book takes place in that city. So yeah, Cold War era Berlin was really my inspiration for it.
Sold.
Yeah.
It's fun to write. It's cool. It's like enemies on all sides. Strangers in a strange land. There's no real port of sanctuary in this city, and they kind of have to learn to rely on each other. But yeah, the group dynamic is really fun. And yeah, I took a lot of inspiration from Hateful Eight, actually, kind of building up the idea of everyone's got a secret. Everyone's got something that they don't want anyone else in this group to know. And if it gets out, then this whole thing that's barely held together by shoestring and bubblegum to begin with, is going to blow apart. And I'm kind of writing the moment right now where everything blows apart. So yeah, it's cool fun. It's cool fun.
That's awesome. It's very cool to hear Hateful Eight gets some love on there because that was one movie
man, I
where
fucking love that movie.
I saw that in theaters, and it was the 70mm Roadshow.
I saw that one too.
I didn't realize, me and two friends went, and it was like January, and we didn't realize there was an intermission. So we saw the 10:50 p.m. showing. And
right. So you got out there at like 5 in the morning.
The lights came on in the theater, and it was like intermission. And we were like, what the fuck is going on? And we went outside and went to have a cigarette because I still smoked back then. And we were outside in the cold smoking, and it was 12:45 in the morning, and we go back in, and the staff locked the doors. So all of us were locked out of the theater in the cold, just banging on the door. And people are walking past, looking at us like, that's not, I don't trust that. And walking past, and we were eventually, I was holding up the bill because they gave you a cool little document. Like,
we got that as well. Yeah.
I was holding that up. I was like, we were in here. Let us in. Freezing. I
got to know what happened to John Ruth. Yeah. Man, I love that movie. I watch it all the time. I think it's a masterclass. It's a masterclass in dialogue.
Each time you watch it, it gets more.
Yeah, it does. And there's virtually no action. It's just a bunch of guys fucking talking for 2 hours. How do you make that interesting? How do you make that compelling? And he does. Like, yeah, I think it's a masterclass in dialogue and intrigue and tension. He always does it well, but I think he does it better there than anywhere else. So yeah, that's a fab.
It's very cool to hear that aspect of things. But what else do you like to do hobby-wise to unwind after writing? Like, what's your day-to-day when you're not doing that?
I play D&D every week with a group of buddies that I've been playing D&D with for 20 years. We do that every Wednesday. What else? I'm a massive Formula One fan, massive WWE fan, which is ridiculous, but I love it anyway. What else? And I read, obviously. When I'm drafting, I tend to read a lot of nonfiction rather than fiction. When I've finished a book and when I'm editing a book, I'll go back to the fiction world. But yeah, I find that when I'm reading other people's fiction, it kind of bleeds into mine. And I want to be in my own space, in my own head. So, but yeah, obviously read, and yeah, big film buff. I'm basically a nerd. I am to nerd. I play collectible card games. I am to nerds what nerds are to normal people. I'm like probably the nerdiest person you've ever met.
Well, yeah, this was the coolest experience ever. Yeah. Bill, you have any other questions? We went through my whole sheet, man.
Yeah, we went through we had a nice little sheet. I do, real quick question, we didn't touch on lifelike or anything else, but do you plan on, this was obviously more cyberpunk dystopian, do you plan on doing more sci-fi-esque stories?
I mean, if the idea comes to me, I'm certainly not opposed to it. But fantasy is kind of my first love, and I'm more comfortable writing that. But if I think of a cool idea, yeah, if an idea is sticky enough and compelling enough to me, then I'll write it. But I'm pretty comfortable in the dark fantasy space at the moment, and it's cool to have books that are similar in vibe that you can turn people onto, like people who've come to me through Empire. While they're waiting for the next book, they can go back and read the Nevernight books. Yeah. Whereas people who found me through Nevernight, they couldn't really go back and read anything that was similar in tone. Like I had written sci-fi and I'd written YA, but I hadn't written dark fantasy before. So I think it's cool to, I found a place where I'm comfortable writing, and it's cool to build up a bedrock and a back catalog of work that people can rediscover while they're waiting for the new things. Because, I've been really lucky in that every series that I've released recently has brought kind of a new flood of readers to me. Like I noticed a real shift in demographic in the crowds that I play to now. Like the crowds that I would play to on Nevernight Tour, it was probably 90% ladies. And now there's been a real uptick of guys who've discovered me, and helped by guys like Joe Abercrombie and John Gwynn, who I've kind of I've fallen into the orbit of, and we do gigs together and we talk about each other's work and whatever. So they've been really cool. And so, yeah, like an entirely new demographic of people have discovered me through the new series. So it's cool to have books that I can, direct people to. If you're liking Empire, then maybe you should try Nevernight while you wait for the new one. So, yeah, I'll stay in this wheelhouse for now because, A, it's fun. I really love writing it. I feel really comfortable writing it. But, yeah, I'm not opposed to anything. If I think of a cool enough idea, then I'll write it. I've actually got an idea for a romance novel kicking around the back of my head right now. I don't know why or where it came from, but if that gets interesting enough, then I'll write that too. Like I try not to be beholden to any particular genre. I just want to write stories that I'm interested in telling and stories that I feel keep pushing me as a writer. I feel like if you're not pushing yourself as a creative, then you're doing yourself and your readers a disservice. I feel most comfortable when the book feels hard, when it feels like I'm doing something that I haven't done before, and I'm having to flex muscles that I didn't know I had. That's when I know I'm doing something interesting and cool. So yeah, I'm not opposed to anything. If I think of a cool enough idea, I'll do it.
Gina wants to know about the romance novel.
It's just an idea. It's just an idea. I'm kicking it around in the back of my head. I don't know if it'll
contemporary or romantasy.
I don't know how you would describe it. It's I don't know. It's just an idea. Probably nothing will come of it, but yeah, I get weird ideas all the time. So if it happens, it happens. What's this space? But I'm contracted for 3 books currently on this new series, so I got to get them done before I write anything else.
Do you think you'd ever do more long form? Because everything's a trilogy. Would you do more long series? Do you think you got it in you?
I don't know. I have tremendous respect for people who do that. Like by the end of 3 books, I'm pretty burned out on the world. I worked on the Empire series I really started writing it in earnest in 2019. So I've been living with it for 6 years. That's a long fucking time. People who can hold their authors who can hold interest in their worlds for longer than that. That's a superpower. I'm usually pretty over it. Like I love this series and I love the conclusion that I wrote for it. But by the time I'd finished writing it, I was kind of ready to roll on. So someone like, Brandon, who's planning a 10-book cycle, that's magic to me. That's like sorcery. I can't imagine it. But if I came across an idea that I thought had legs enough to do it, then yeah, I would do it. But I think there is a real danger in staying too long at the table at the casino. I'm sure we can all think of series that just outstayed their welcome because the author was really comfortable and it was selling lots of books, or a TV show is getting lots of ratings, and the idea didn't have legs enough to carry it through to season 4 or season 5, but everyone was making too much fucking money to just put it down and walk away, and everything breaks over time. You start to lose fidelity and things fall apart. So I got tremendous respect for, something like Breaking Bad that just it went out on a high. Like they were crushing it. Everyone fucking loved that show, and they said, this is the end and there's not going to be any more, and I hope you liked it. We're going to go on and do something else. That takes real courage and bravery to walk away for something that successful. And it's really scary to start something new. You don't know if the new thing you write is going to be as successful as the thing that you're leaving behind. So I understand the temptation to keep writing the thing that's successful. But I think, everything breaks with time. And there's a real risk of you staying too long at the table, and the house always wins in the end. You know when you cash in your chips and get the fuck out and go have a bottle of champagne. I'm not opposed to the idea of writing something longer than 3, but I'd have to be doing it for the right reasons. Like people ask me to write a sequel to Nevernight like all the time, and
you can't.
No. And they're not actually asking me to write a sequel. What they're actually asking me for is
fanfic.
To make them feel the way they felt when they first read Nevernight, and I can't do that. Like You've already done it. I've already pulled that rabbit out of the hat. You can't do that again. And we can all think of a series where someone went back to the well once too often, and it kind of spoils the thing that you loved. Like Game of Thrones TV show is a perfect example. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've walked past my DVD rack and said to myself, I should really watch Thrones again. It was fucking awesome. And then I remembered how badly it ended, and I just don't want to watch the start of it anymore.
Yep.
Even though this was amazing, like just fucking incredible television. But the end of it left such a sour note that it kind of ruins everything cool that came before. So I don't want to do that to my work. I respect it and the readers who loved it too much to go back to the well for the wrong reasons. So not saying that the right reason doesn't exist, and not saying that there aren't authors who do it well, but I have yet to come across an idea that can sustain itself for more than 3 books.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
It's hard, man. You get bored. I get bored.
Yeah. Well, you always want to do something different. I mean,
Sure.
You get all these ideas that come in your head, and you can't just sit on them all forever.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I feel you. I definitely feel you. I don't know. I'm doing a 4-book series, and I don't know if I really want to or not.
4 is a lot. Even 3 is a lot. But yeah, if you get through it, good on you. You've got the superpower that I have yet to discover.
I mean, I'll have like 4 readers. It's okay. By that point.
You never know. You never know.
That was a perfect description, especially with book 3 coming out, which is coming out on my birthday. So
happy birthday.
I was super stoked about that. Empire of the Dawn coming out on November 4th. And I will be part of the no longer 90% girly crowd in New York.
Cool.
So I will be there. Like I said at the very beginning, Bill also mentioned it. Shane's mentioning it now, book of the year. This is the first series where I was in at the ground floor and was there from the opening at Empire, Damned, and now. And it feels like I was witnessing history while it happened. And like I said, this was a finishing Dawn and talking with Bill at the same time, maybe within like 2 hours of each other. We're just, like, fuck. Like, it was almost like speechless. And this is, like I said, a Mount Rushmore trilogy for me.
Thanks, man. That's really cool of you to say. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm really proud of it.
You should be.
It's the best finale that I've written. And it's my favorite book of the trilogy. Like, Vampire will always have a special place in my heart because it was so hard to write, and I did think it was going to break me. So pushing through and coming out with the book that I wrote, I'm really proud of it. But I think Dawn is a better book than Vampire. Everyone will have their own opinions, which is cool. But yeah, it's the best finale that I've written. So yeah, I really hope people like it. I'm glad you guys did.
Yeah, it's fun. This is going to end up being like the Lord of the Rings movies, where any given day, I'm like, Fellowship is the best. And then 2 days later, I'm like, nah, Return of the King is the best. It's going to be like this, where every time I start talking about it, I'm like, oh, this is the fucking obvious number 1. And then Bill will be like, yeah, but what about this? And I'm like, shit, that one's the best one. They're all interchangeable. I've never seen it before or been a part of it as a reader. So really thank you for such an amazing series, and especially thank you for agreeing to do this with us.
Yeah,
no worries at all. It was a pleasure. I'm really glad you enjoyed the books. Thank you. I take that as a huge compliment.
You need to get this made into a movie series or TV show.
You never know. You like in the big city. They need a lot of money, but you never know.
Yeah, well,
just from my end, this is awesome. Like, you're one of the coolest dudes on, like, even though you hate the internet and social media, you're one of the coolest dudes on there.
Cool.
And
probably because I'm not on there a lot. The more you see of me, the less interesting I become.
Well, I mean, I appreciate, your interactions, always interacting with the fans and stuff is just great. And obviously, as an author, my books are massively inspired by yours. So this was just really cool, and I'm happy you said yes to Pete, and then Pete begged me to come on and join him with this. So thank you for that. This has just been a cool little time for me.
You're more than welcome, my friend. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone in the chat. Thank you for
Excellent.
questions and such a good feedback. Everyone was really popping off. And I feel like you should be reaching out to psychiatrists for your 20% cut because since we started, 3 people, I think, have booked appointments. But keep it fucking coming, man. This was just the best. So I appreciate it. And just wanted to say thank you once again.
You're more than welcome.
Everybody go get Dawn. It's such a good book.
Thanks,
As
guys.
a birthday present to me, go buy Dawn.
I will. I'll see you in New York, dude.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, thanks again. And hope everyone has a good night. And I hope you have a good day.
All right. Take care, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.